She stumbled over the slick roots, mud and blood clinging to her boots as if the earth itself were trying to claim her. Pain shot through her ankle, sharp and searing, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not now. Not when every sound behind her, a snap of a branch, a distant growl, the crunch of snow under paw and boot, screamed that they were closing in. Her heart hammered so violently it drowned out everything else. Each breath came ragged and shallow. Don't shift. Don't lose control. Not now. She whispered the warning, trembling as a flicker of silver light danced under her skin, a pulse of power she barely understood, barely controlled. It wanted to surge, to fight back, to tear her pursuers apart, but she forced it down, clinging to survival instead of fury. Then she felt it, the eyes. Bright, calculating, unblinking. Not human. Not fully. Tracking her, testing her, waiting. She risked a glance over her shoulder and froze. Both. Not hunting prey, hunting her. Every movement deliberate, every growl steeped in malice and intelligence. Branches tore at her dress and skin. Her hands scraped against bark as she scrambled to rise. Boots echoed behind her, human footsteps mingling with the wolves' predatory chorus. She ran. Heart screaming, lungs burning, legs shaking, silver light pulsing beneath her skin in defiance. A spark of her untamed essence threatening to break free. Her mind flashed back, unwillingly, to every moment she'd been called cursed, rejected, feared. The burn of the mark on her skin. The hollow absence of her mother. And through it all, a lonely, stubborn flicker of strength. The knowledge that she had survived before and she could survive now. If you love forbidden love and destiny-charged werewolf stories, subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. This is just the beginning, she thought in a fleeting, almost desperate whisper, imagining someone waiting for her story, someone who could witness her fight and understand. Snow clung to her hair, melting against raw skin, dripping into eyes already stinging with tears and cold. She stumbled into a hollow, her body shivering violently, but the cave-like formation she pressed against offered only a fleeting refuge. Outside, the pack howled, their cries a mixture of hunger and calculation. And just when she thought she might catch her breath, the shadow moved. A figure. Unseen yet aware of her every movement. Watching. Calculating. Waiting for her next misstep. Her pulse leapt, her silver light flared with anticipation and fear. She pressed back into the shadows, barely breathing, feeling the storm of pursuit pressing closer. Every fiber of her being screamed. Run, survive, fight, or lose everything. She almost allowed the power to surge, almost let herself shift fully into the storm inside her. But restraint held. Her fingers dug into frozen ground, pulling her forward. Step by step, stumble by stumble, she ran, leaving a faint trail of silver sparks behind her. A testament that she was here, that she was alive, and that she would not surrender to fear. And through it all the chase continued. Wolves prowling, hunters closing in, and somewhere in the shadows, something ancient and intelligent was waiting for the moment she faltered. She skidded across the forest floor, heart hammering, silver light flickering beneath her skin like warning flames. One misstep and she would fall. Yet she didn't see him until she collided with something impossibly solid. A chest that could have been stone, a body that radiated power so intense it stole her breath. "Watch yourself," he said, low and controlled, his voice carrying authority and danger in equal measure. Even in the chaos, the forest seemed to hush around him as if the trees themselves recognized his command. Her chest heaved. She tried to speak but her voice faltered. Then, impossibly, he said her name. Her name. Not whispered, not guessing, but knowing. It sent a shiver down her spine, a mix of fear and disbelief. How could he know? "You've been running," he said, eyes scanning her, sharp, calculating yet unreadable. "I've been watching you. More than you realize." His tone wasn't threatening, not exactly. It was a warning wrapped in curiosity, a tension that made the hair on her arms rise. She stumbled back instinctively, forcing words out. I'm not your." "You lied," he cut in, a flash of accusation in his eyes. "You think you can hide from me? From what you are?" She bristled. "I don't need hiding from you. You don't understand anything about me." The air between them crackled, subtle at first, then stronger, tiny sparks of energy like the flicker of her silver flame brushing against his presence. He paused, nostrils flaring, sensing something in her that went far beyond human or even wolf. Powerful. Forbidden. Blood that carried stories older than the forest around them. He didn't admit it, of course. He wouldn't. Pride, caution, and the unspoken rule of his kind held him back. But she saw it, fleeting moments in the sharp tilt of his gaze, the fraction of a second he hesitated before answering, the quickened pulse she almost felt from across the small space that separated them. "You're bleeding," he said finally, voice rougher now, a touch softer. "Let me." She froze. Let him touch her after everything. The chase, the fear, the humiliation, the judgment of her own power? But his hand moved anyway. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, fingers grazing her cheek. Heat flared through her chest in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. Her heartbeat skittered in panic, and then slowed as his palm hovered over the raw scrape on her shoulder, pressing lightly, tending with deliberate care. The connection shocked her. She could feel the synchronicity of their heartbeats, rapid, desperate, then aligning, the silent rhythm of survival and something unspoken. She wanted to pull away, to resist the magnetic, dangerous pull of him, but she couldn't. For a long moment the world seemed to shrink to the two of them. The snowstorm muted, the wolves' howls became distant echoes, and only the soft crackle of energy between them existed. She realized, with a thrill of fear and disbelief, that she wasn't meant to belong to him. She wasn't supposed to be here in this moment in the orbit of his presence. Not yet. And yet, the bond pulsed like the silver flame under her skin. A subtle, undeniable pull that neither of them could name. A tether of fate, invisible but unbreakable, linking their breaths, their heartbeats, their very essence in a way that made the world outside fade to nothing. He looked at her then, really looked, and she felt it. The caution, the restraint, the silent war between desire and duty, between curiosity and fear. He wanted to reach across, to claim what he could not name. And she wanted to fall into him, even as every rational thought screamed to flee. "I don't understand you," he murmured almost to himself. "Maybe you never will," she whispered back, voice trembling, vulnerable yet defiant. He didn't answer, only continued to tend to her wound, his fingers brushing her skin with careful attention, while the storm outside howled a reminder that danger wasn't gone. Wolves still circled, and the forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. And in that moment, standing on the edge of exhaustion and fear, pain and silver flame power, she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She wasn't meant to belong to him. She wasn't meant to be tamed, captured, or claimed. And yet, the bond felt alive. Alive in the rhythm of their hearts. Alive in the brush of his fingers against her skin. Alive in the heat and electricity that danced through the air whenever their gazes met. It was dangerous. It was forbidden. And it was far from over. Her eyes fluttered open, the dim glow of the firelight casting jagged shadows across the cave walls. Every muscle ached, every breath burned, but the real weight pressed inside her chest. Memories clawed their way back, vivid and unrelenting. She remembered the fire, her mother's lullaby cut short by screams, a searing mark burned into her skin before she could even understand the pain. The pack had recoiled, whispers of cursed blood and dangerous power filling the night air like poison. She had been a child, small and trembling, yet carrying a spark no one dared acknowledge. And when her mother vanished, swept away into the shadows by something she never learned, the world had become colder, sharper, lonelier. Each rejection, each accusation of being dangerous, left invisible scars, wounds that no one could see but that throbbed endlessly beneath her skin. Her power, the silver flame that danced just beneath her flesh, had awakened too soon, erupting when she didn't even know her own strength. She had learned to hide it, to suppress it, to survive the fear in everyone's eyes. And now, years later, it pulsed again, reminding her that control was fragile, that the monster inside never truly slept. A soft murmur echoed in her mind, subtle but undeniable. Her wolf, the other voice within, whispered warnings. "Don't lose yourself. Don't let them see the fire. Don't let him see the monster you fear." The voice was neither cruel nor comforting, only a mirror of her own tension, a constant push and pull between restraint and instinct. Her gaze fell on the alpha, the Lycan King, standing across from her. He didn't touch her now, yet she felt the pull of him in every line of his stance, in the weight of his eyes as they traced her trembling form. He wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe that he could be the one safe harbor in the storm that had been her life. But every memory of rejection, of fear, of being hunted and shunned, screamed against the desire that rose with every heartbeat she felt near him. He noticed the shadow crossing her face, the subtle shiver beneath the firelight. He stepped closer, and even without words she felt the hesitation, the questioning, the doubt creeping into him. Something in her, a flicker of her mother's bloodline, a dangerous echo from the past, had pierced the armor of everything he had been taught. He had been raised to distrust the powerful, the cursed, the uncontrollable. Yet here she was, bleeding, vulnerable, yet radiating a force that defied the lessons of his life. Her pulse quickened, part fear, part anticipation. The wolf within urged caution, but another whisper, softer, more intoxicating, urged defiance. "You're not their fear. You're your own fire." She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself, trying to separate past from present, memory from reality. She wanted to speak, to apologize, to explain, but the words would not come. Instead, she focused on his presence, on the way the air seemed heavier around him, on the subtle warmth that drew her unwillingly closer even as instinct screamed to flee. And she realized, in a flash of both terror and clarity, that her struggle wasn't just with her own power. It was with the bond forming between them, a tether that felt both dangerous and inevitable, one she could neither resist nor fully understand. He reached out again, just a fraction, not touching her, only offering the silent acknowledgement of what he sensed. His gaze softened for the briefest moment, but then the walls of caution rose again, steel and shadow. She saw it. The conflict in him, the questioning of all he had been taught, the war between duty and the undeniable pull toward her. Her hands shook as she fought the surge of silver light under her skin. Fear licked at her, sharp and raw. If I lose control, if I shift, if I let the fire free, he might not forgive me. He might not survive me. And yet, a part of her longed for release, longed to show him the power that had kept her alive all these years, longed for him to see the full scope of what she truly was. He stepped closer again, sensing the tension, the struggle, the silent scream beneath her calm exterior. He didn't speak, but he let the air between them thrum with unspoken understanding. And for a heartbeat, the forest, the wolves, the storm, the danger, all of it, faded into the background, leaving only the fragile, tremulous connection between predator and prey, alpha and flame-born, fear and desire. Her wolf growled softly in her mind, a mixture of warning and curiosity, a reflection of her own conflict. She could feel him responding to it, instinct and intuition guiding him, even as he refused to admit the pull she stirred within him. He had been trained to see danger in her, to fear her power, to suppress every ounce of fascination that threatened his control. And yet he couldn't look away. Every memory of her rejection, every scar, every lonely moment flashed through her mind like firelight reflecting on water. She had survived, clawed through pain and fear, and yet here she was, trembling before the very being whose presence both terrified and captivated her. And in that trembling she realized that the struggle wasn't just with the world. It was with herself, with her own fear of becoming the monster they all whispered about. Her gaze met his, and for a fleeting instant she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her. Not the cursed, not the dangerous, not the untamed, but her. And he in that moment let doubt creep in. He questioned his own lessons, his own instincts, the very rules he had lived by. The ice in his eyes softened for a heartbeat, and it terrified and thrilled her all at once. She inhaled sharply, the firelight flickering across her skin, silver sparks whispering along the edges of her consciousness. The wolf inside her surged again, demanding release, screaming of power, of survival, of everything she had been taught to suppress. But she clenched her fists, grounding herself, forcing the bond between them to simmer rather than ignite. And she understood finally that this torment, the fear, the power, the attraction, the hesitation, was only the beginning. It was the storm before the fire, the shadow before the light. She was standing on the precipice of something vast, dangerous, and inevitable. And whether she survived it or whether he could remained unknown. She stepped into the grove and the world seemed to exhale around her. Moonlight spilled through the twisted canopy of ancient trees, illuminating symbols carved into stones older than any history she had known. Each step she took sent subtle vibrations through the ground, the carvings glowing faint silver at her presence. It was as if the forest itself recognized her, acknowledged her, and whispered secrets she had only sensed in dreams. The air was thick with age, magic, and warning. Shadows clung to the corners of the grove, curling like sentient smoke, watching her every movement. Her pulse raced, not from fear of the forest but from the weight of what she was stepping into. Every instinct screamed caution, but an invisible thread pulled her forward. She had been running all her life, from hunters, from fear, from herself. But here she felt drawn into something inevitable, something older than her pain, older than her loneliness. Elders appeared from the shadows, their movements slow but purposeful, faces lined with centuries of knowledge and sorrow. Their voices were soft, almost musical, carrying through the air like echoes from another time. "The one with the mark," they murmured, eyes locking onto her as if she alone carried the future of the world in her veins. She faltered. The weight of centuries pressed on her shoulders. She could feel her power stirring beneath the surface, silver light flickering through her skin like restless fire, impatient to reveal itself. Her wolf growled softly inside her, a low vibration of warning and curiosity. She had never been in a place like this, where every stone, every breath of wind, every shadowed movement felt alive with judgment and expectation. The Lycan King stepped beside her, his presence solid and grounding, yet tense with the same energy she sensed thrumming through the grove. His eyes never left the elders, never left the way they measured her, as though she were both weapon and prophecy. He could feel it too, the magnetic pull of destiny, the way her power responded to the sacred space, the ancient bond weaving its threads around her without consent. "The twin bound," one elder finally said, voice quivering with awe and fear. "One shall save. One shall destroy. Her blood carries the fire that can heal, or end the world." The words hit her like a thunderclap. Her knees nearly buckled. "And the world?" The silver light under her skin flared and she could feel it. A current of energy that wasn't fully hers yet, powerful and raw, responding to the prophecy in ways she could not comprehend. She had survived rejection, exile, and fear of her own strength, but this was something far greater than survival. The Lycan King's gaze sharpened. He sensed it too. Something in her blood, her aura, her very being, was tied to a deeper force, one that connected her to the twin, the brother she had glimpsed briefly before, the one who mirrored her mate's alpha presence. His instincts flared, protective and wary, a growl of tension echoing through the marrow of his bones. The prophecy wasn't just about her. It was about them all, the twin, the pack, the world they inhabited. Her breath caught as the truth sank in. One brother would save her, the other would destroy everything she had ever known. And the twin's shadow loomed over the grove, even if he wasn't present, an invisible hand tugging at fate's strings. Her wolf stirred, restless, whispering warnings of danger, of betrayal, of power beyond her control. And yet another whisper, softer, almost seductive, urged her forward. "You were made for this. You are more than they fear. More than even he realizes." She felt the Lycan King's tension like a second heartbeat beside her own. He wasn't just observing the prophecy, he was calculating, predicting, feeling the surge of power that might consume them all if they misstepped. And for the first time she sensed fear in him. Not fear of her, but fear of the path they were forced to walk together. Silver sparks rose faintly from her skin, drifting into the air like ethereal motes of light. The trees seemed to bend toward her, the runes pulsing in harmony with her heartbeat. She felt the bond between them thrum, not in desire, not yet, but in recognition. Two forces linked by destiny, by blood, by a prophecy that neither could ignore. The elder's eyes lingered on her, measuring, judging, warning. "She is the fire. She is the storm," one murmured, tone reverent and fearful. "But she is also the key. The twin will decide." And she understood in that moment the terrible weight she carried. Her power was not merely hers. It was ancestral, unstoppable, terrifying. She could heal what was broken, save those she loved, and yet, in the wrong hands, or under the wrong influence, it could annihilate everything. The Lycan King's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, a silent promise and a warning all in one movement. His presence grounded her, but it also heightened the stakes. If the twin chose wrong, if the prophecy twisted against them, neither of them would survive untouched. She swallowed hard, fighting the flicker of fear and the surge of her power. The grove seemed alive, humming with expectation. Silver sparks danced along the roots and stones, responding to her heartbeat, to the unspoken tension that held the air taut like a drawn bowstring. She could feel her wolf's agitation, hungry, curious, anxious. The inner voice whispered one word over and over: control. She turned slightly, meeting the alpha's eyes. Even amidst the awe and fear, there was something else there. Something unspoken, something raw. He could sense the depth of her power, the magnitude of her potential, and perhaps the terrible beauty of what she could become. And yet neither dared speak it aloud. The prophecy had not yet spoken her full fate, but the threads were pulling them inexorably toward the coming storm. Her gaze swept the grove again, taking in the glowing runes, the shadows of twisted trees, the elders who watched like ghosts of the past. She felt the pull of destiny in every nerve, every flicker of silver light beneath her skin. The twins' presence, even as a shadow on the edge of her awareness, pressed against her thoughts like a silent challenge. And she knew it. The coming days, the next choices, the next moments of fear and trust, of power and restraint, would define not only her fate but the fate of everyone tied to her bloodline. One brother would save, one would destroy. One bond would survive, one would shatter. And the alpha beside her, the man whose hands had tended her wounds, whose presence had both soothed and terrified her, was caught in the same tide, tethered to her in ways neither could yet name. Silver sparks flickered along her arms again, responding to the pulse of destiny, to the rhythm of prophecy, to the unspoken acknowledgement that the twin, the unknown, dangerous, mirrored force, was central to it all. The Lycan King's eyes flickered toward the edge of the grove, muscles coiled, ready, anticipating the chaos and heartbreak that would soon collide with their fragile bond. She inhaled sharply, trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. Her destiny was calling, the prophecy was unfolding, and the twin, the shadow in the background of her life, was moving. Every fiber of her being, every whisper of her wolf, every pulse of silver fire under her skin, screamed that nothing would ever be the same again. The grove, which had moments ago been a sanctuary of whispers and silver light, erupted into chaos with a single roar. Shadows leapt from the periphery of her vision, figures she had never expected to see pressing forward with teeth bared, claws gleaming, eyes alight with accusation and fury. The elders' whispers became frantic shouts, warnings swallowed in the sudden roar of dissent. Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs as she realized the danger wasn't just in the shadows. It was in the very people she had once thought allies. Rival alphas, their faces twisted with jealousy and fear, moved like predators themselves, cutting off escape routes, circling her as though she were prey, though the prey in question was unlike anything they had ever faced. Voices shouted over the wind, accusing her of manipulation, of seduction, of weaving her magic into every glance, every heartbeat. "She is dangerous," one snarled. "She plays with our fate," another hissed, teeth bared, claws flexing. The words struck her like daggers, piercing deeper than any physical wound, for in the accusations she heard echoes of every rejection she had endured, the childhood whispers of cursed blood, the exiled warnings from her pack, the bitter sting of being feared rather than loved. And then the twin appeared. His presence was sudden, almost casual in contrast to the charged fury around them, yet his charm and cruelty radiated in equal measure. He stepped into the clearing, eyes glinting with an unsettling mixture of desire and calculation. He smirked, voice smooth and honeyed, but with an edge that made her skin prickle. "It seems the little firebrand knows how to play. Seduction first, lies later. Clever, aren't we?" Every instinct screamed. She knew better than to respond, yet the twins' words seared her, inflaming the humiliation and anger that had been simmering within her since childhood. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but the chorus of dissenting alphas and the murmuring council swallowed her voice, turning it into a whisper lost in the storm of accusation. The Lycan King's jaw tightened. Every muscle in his body coiled, a silent promise of protection and a warning of restraint. His gaze flicked between her and the twin, measuring, calculating, sensing every surge of silver fire beneath her skin, every pulse of her untamed power. But the council's eyes were on him, and the unspoken law of the pack weighed heavily. Loyalty to the rules, loyalty to the collective, not the individual. He hesitated. And in that fraction of time the twin's smirk deepened. He saw the hesitation, the flicker of uncertainty in the alpha's eyes, and used it like a blade, cutting into the fragile bond forming between them. Can he really see her for what she is? the twin whispered under his breath. Or is he blind too? Her wolf stirred in response, low growls vibrating in her chest, warning and urging. She could feel the surge of her power responding to the tension, the fear, the danger pressing in from all sides. Silver sparks danced along her skin, bright enough to catch the elders' attention, to show them what they claimed to fear. Every fiber of her being screamed to flee, to fight, to claim her space, her life, and her destiny. And she did. With a roar that was both human and wolf, she stepped forward, defiance flaring in her eyes. She would not be controlled, not again. I will not run from what I am, she hissed, voice trembling yet sharp, echoing through the grove like a silver blade. Every eye turned toward her, every accusation, every whisper of fear, every breathless warning seemed to condense into that moment. She was no longer the girl who hid in shadows. She was the force that had been whispered about, feared and coveted, and she would make them see it. The pack recoiled, a ripple of hesitation running through them. The twin's smirk faltered, a shadow of doubt flickering across his perfect mask. He had underestimated her, assumed her fragility, assumed she could be pushed, cajoled, bent to the pack's will. But she stood taller now, her silver fire flaring higher, illuminating the tension, the anger, the determination etched into her features. The Lycan King moved then, a single fluid step forward. But still he hesitated. His instincts screamed to protect, to shield her from the twin, from the council, from the dangers pressing in from every angle. And yet the rules, the expectations, the weight of centuries of leadership pressed upon him. Could he betray the pack to defend the girl who had already suffered too much? Could he step beyond the rigid lines drawn by law and custom to honor the bond, unspoken, magnetic, that pulsed between them both? Her eyes met his, silver sparks reflecting in his dark gaze. She saw the struggle, the hesitation, the unvoiced conflict, and in that silent exchange something ignited. Not trust yet, not love, but recognition. A spark that whispered, we are bound whether you see it or not. Then the twin laughed, soft and cruel, a sound that made her blood tighten in her veins. Look at him, the twin said, voice dripping with mockery, torn between duty and desire. How sweet. How utterly predictable. She let her fear twist into fury. She had been underestimated all her life, dismissed, branded, cursed, cast aside. And here, in the heart of this ancient grove, with the prophecy hanging over her like a sword, she refused to be dismissed again. Her power surged, silver light cracking along her skin like lightning, echoing her inner fire, flaring with intention and threat. The twin faltered. The pack took a step back. Even the elders paused, uncertain, as if sensing that the prophecy wasn't just a whisper in the shadows anymore. It had arrived, blazing in flesh and bone. And the Lycan King, who had been watching, calculating, waiting for the right moment to intervene, felt the shift in the air. He felt the surge of her silver fire, the pull of destiny, the undeniable bond that tethered them across fear, hesitation, and centuries of expectation. And in that moment he realized he could no longer stand apart. Not if she fell, not if the prophecy unfolded in a way that would destroy everything. But the moment was fleeting. The pack surged again, dissenters closing in with teeth and claws bared, shadows twisting with intent to strike. She growled, low and fierce, a sound that resonated in her chest, warning and promise intertwined. She would fight. He would not be controlled. She would not be bent to another's will. Not the twin, not the council, not the fear that had haunted her since childhood. And in that chaos she found clarity. Her silver fire roared in response to the tension, to the twin's smirk, to the pack's accusation. She was not a pawn. She was not a weapon to be wielded. She was the twin bound, the one who carried the fire to heal or destroy, and she would decide, not them. The Lycan King stepped closer, instinct and desire battling law and caution, ready to shield her if he could, but watching, waiting for her to make her first claim of power. And she did. Her silver light flaring, eyes burning, wolf within her howling with wild, unrestrained force. It was the first moment she truly understood her strength, her destiny, and the price of underestimation. The twin recoiled, the pack faltered, and even the elders whispered with awe and fear. The prophecy had begun, and she had chosen to meet it head-on. And in the tension of that grove, with snow beginning to fall silently around the silver-lit chaos, she vowed, not to submit, not to flee, but to rise. Whatever came next, she would face it with all the fire in her veins, all the silver in her soul, and all the defiance she had carried since birth. The cave was quiet now but not peaceful. Outside, the snowstorm had passed, leaving the world damp and silver, the moon casting pale light through jagged openings in the rock. Inside, the fire sputtered, casting flickering shadows across damp stone walls, illuminating the bruises and scratches on her arms, the blood still clinging to torn fabric. She sat on a rough-hewn stone, shivering, and he knelt before her, hands gentle but commanding as they pressed warm cloths to her cuts, fingers brushing skin in a way that sent sparks racing through her chest. She wanted to recoil, to push him away, to remind herself that he was the Alpha, the king of a world she had never been meant to inhabit. Yet she couldn't. Every brush of his palm against her skin, every deliberate movement, carried a weight she could not ignore. There was care in his touch, yes, but also restraint, power held in check, a subtle warning that he could crush her in a heartbeat if she faltered. "I didn't want this," he said softly, almost a whisper, eyes downcast as if revealing this truth made him vulnerable. "I didn't want to take the crown this way. But to lead, to survive. I had to kill. Every strike, every name etched into my hands, it was for this world, this pack, this duty." Her breath caught. The words hung in the smoky cave air like smoke itself, curling and tangling with the scent of burning pine and wet stone. The firelight danced across his face, highlighting a chiseled jaw and dark eyes that had seen more than any human should. She had imagined strength before, but here, laid bare in confession, it was raw, burdened, and achingly human. She exhaled, trembling. I've always felt broken," she admitted, voice low, barely above the crackle of the flames. "Exiled, cursed, afraid of what I am, what I could become. Every day I've fought to survive, but I've been alone. Afraid to trust, afraid to shift, afraid to be seen." His gaze lifted, piercing, meeting hers in a way that stripped the room of shadows. "You're not alone," he said. "And you're not broken. Not to me. I see you. All of you. Every scar, every fear, every flicker of silver fire. I see it and I won't look away." Her pulse thundered, echoing against the stone walls. His words, his presence, filled the cave like a tangible current, brushing against nerves she didn't know could feel so acutely. She wanted to lean into him, to surrender to the warmth, the protection, the magnetic pull that had been drawing her since the forest chase. And yet something held her back. A whisper of danger, the echo of prophecy, the fear that whatever bond she felt could ignite into something uncontrollable, something fatal. He leaned closer. The scent of him, earthy, wild, magnetic, wrapped around her senses, making it impossible to think in rational terms. She could feel the heat from his body, the slow, deliberate strength in his arms, the tension that thrummed beneath his skin as if he, too, were straddling the line between control and instinct. For a heartbeat, the world contracted to just the two of them, and the almost kiss hung in the air like a fragile crystal, trembling with unspoken longing. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, restless, impatient, whispering of desire, danger, and destiny entwined. His eyes flicked to hers, searching, daring, and for a brief, suspended moment, the firelight and shadow, pain and desire, prophecy and defiance, all collided in the charged space between them. And then the cave shivered. A distant growl, not entirely natural, echoed through the stone tunnels. Something moved beyond the firelight, a hint of shadow, a flicker of silver in the darkness. A vision? A threat? Or perhaps the prophecy itself flexing its fingers in the world, testing their resolve. She stepped back instinctively, breaking the charged intimacy, heart hammering, wolf growling low in warning. He straightened as well, jaw tightening, but his hand lingered, hovering near hers, reluctant to pull away completely. "Not yet," he murmured, a whisper meant only for her, layered with warning and promise. "Not until we're ready, until we know what we're facing." Her chest heaved, eyes wide, the firelight reflecting both fear and yearning. I don't know if I can trust myself," she admitted, voice trembling with the weight of years of betrayal and doubt. "I don't know if I can trust anyone." He let out a slow breath, shoulders heavy with unspoken battles, yet every movement radiated intention. "Trust isn't given," he said. "It's claimed. And sometimes, it's demanded. But I promise you this, you won't be abandoned. Not while I can stand, not while this heart beats." Silence fell again, thick and alive, the cave holding its breath along with them. Sparks of silver flickered along her skin as the wolf within her quivered, sensing the magnetic tension, the unspoken words, the invisible threads of connection and destiny tightening between them. Outside, the wind whispered through the mountains, carrying frost and warning, yet inside there was only the fire, the closeness, the almost touch that neither could yet claim. She wanted to step into him, to close the gap, to let the bond ignite, but duty, fear, prophecy, and instinct all pulled her back, reminding her that surrender now could be fatal. And he knew it. His eyes darkened, glinting with a mixture of frustration, admiration, and something raw, something human and wolf at once. The almost kiss lingered, a suspended promise in the air, a reminder of desire and restraint intertwined. For a long moment, they simply existed in the same space, breaths mingling, heartbeats sinking, wolves coiling and shifting beneath their skin. The cave, the fire, the shadows, and the distant howl beyond all faded, leaving only the tension, the trust yet to be earned, and the magnetic pull that neither could, or would, ignore. And then the vision returned, brief, bright, unsettling, a silver flash outside the cave mouth, foretelling danger, demanding attention, interrupting intimacy and shattering the fragile moment. Both of them froze, awareness snapping back to reality, instincts sharpening like claws. He stood tall, imposing, every inch the alpha, yet his eyes never left hers. "Stay close," he said, voice low, commanding, a mixture of protection and warning. "I won't let anything harm you. Not tonight. Not ever if I can prevent it." She nodded, heart still pounding, silver sparks flickering along her skin in response to the words, to the nearness, to the fire in her chest. Trust would come slowly, she realized, as would understanding, as would love. But in this moment they were both tethered, bound by danger, destiny, and an unspoken, undeniable bond that neither time nor prophecy could deny. And as the fire crackled, shadows dancing across jagged walls, she allowed herself a single fleeting thought. Perhaps for the first time in her life she could be seen, truly seen, and not recoiled from. Perhaps she could trust, just a little. Outside the storm whispered. Inside, the cave held the tension of two hearts circling each other, suspended between fear, desire, and the fragile threads of trust that could either hold them together, or shatter everything. The clearing outside the cave felt smaller than it should have, pressed in by shadows and moonlight that seemed sharper, more accusing than ever. She stepped forward, still trembling from the cave fire, the bond with the Lycan King still fresh, fragile, and impossible to ignore. And then, in an instant, the world shifted. The twin appeared, not quietly, not stealthily, but with the precision of a predator, eyes glinting like shards of glass, voice calm and venomous. "So this is the girl," he said, and the words cut sharper than any blade. "The one you've all been whispering about. The one marked by fire. The harbinger. The apocalypse incarnate." The council erupted. Elders, alphas, and pack leaders leapt into action, some shouting, some pointing, others backing away in fear. Chains appeared in ghostly hands, coiling around her wrists and ankles like serpents. The cold metal bit into her skin, dragging her down to the earth even as her heartbeat thundered in defiance. She tried to speak, to explain, but the words caught in her throat, tangled with disbelief. "No. I'm not what you say. I'm not," but the council would not hear. Their eyes, wide with terror and awe, reflected the prophecy in their minds before it even left his lips. "She is too dangerous," one elder whispered. "Her power will consume us all. She is the end of everything." Chains rattled. The weight of accusation pressed her shoulders into the soil. Her pulse quickened, silver sparks flickering along her veins, tiny stars of power that refused to be ignored. The wolf within her snarled, rising wild and untamed, threatening to break free, warning her that the world would try to hold her down, but she would not stay bound. The Lycan King stepped forward, his face a mask of anguish and fury. His hands clenched, knuckles white, his voice low but carrying an edge sharp enough to cut through the night. "Stop," he roared, but the pack hesitated, fear outweighing respect, tradition outweighing instinct. He froze mid-step, torn. Defend her and face every alpha in the council, or obey the law of the pack and condemn her to chains and shame. Her chest heaved. Rage, humiliation, fear. They collided inside her like lightning striking stone. She had always known the world would reject her, always feared being hunted by those who should protect. But this betrayal cut to the marrow. Her hands twisted against the chains, silver sparks leaping and hissing with every desperate tug. The twins' grin widened, cruel and calculating. "Look at her," he taunted. "Look at her flailing, her power awakening before your very eyes. Do you see it? Do you feel it? She is not meant to survive." The silver fire under her skin roared to life, threads of raw energy weaving outward, brushing against the snow and the stones, illuminating the night like a dawn made of sparks. Her wolf screamed in the back of her mind, clawing at her sanity, begging for release, urging her to embrace what she had been denied her entire life. Chains began to burn where her silver fire touched them, smoke curling upward, acrid and magical. Her body trembled, power coursing through every vein, every nerve, every thought. She could feel the earth beneath her pulse in sync with her own, the mountains bending imperceptibly to her rising might. The Lycan King's hesitation became a knife in her chest. He wanted to intervene, to break through the pack and shield her, but the council's stares, the twins' words, the prophecy echoing in his mind, he froze. And in that split second the betrayal became complete. She was alone truly for the first time since birth. Her roar tore from her throat, not human, not fully wolf, not fully contained, a sound that shook the trees, echoed across the frozen hills and made even the twin falter for the first time. Silver fire exploded outward, bathing the clearing in unearthly light, illuminating fear and awe in the council's eyes, the pack's hesitation and the twins' tightening grip on his composure. Branches cracked under the intensity, snow melting into steam, shadows bending and twisting as if the world itself recognized the power she wielded. She could have let go entirely, unleashed the prophecy in full, become the apocalypse the council feared, but she hesitated. A voice inside, ancestors, mother, wolf, whispered restraint, survival, clarity. The Lycan King stepped closer finally, but not fully. His presence alone anchored her, a tether to something human, something she could still trust. His eyes, dark and conflicted, met hers, conveying more than words could ever hold. "You can survive this. You are more than what they fear." But the twin was already moving, circling, calculating, ready to strike at her moment of vulnerability. His laughter echoed in her mind, a sharp blade through the fear and the silver light. "Do you feel it?" he hissed. "The fire? The power you cannot control? You're already trembling beneath it. You're nothing without chains." The chains writhed, trying to resist the fire, but with a surge they warped, melted and fell away, leaving her standing, bloodied, bruised, trembling but untethered. Silver fire radiated from her body in waves, illuminating her hair, her eyes, the marks burned into her skin from childhood. She was magnificent, terrifying, unstoppable and yet vulnerable. The wolf within her howled, a voice she had never heard in full before, demanding freedom, demanding acknowledgement, demanding survival. She could feel the prophecy pulse through her veins, hear it in the wind and snow, sense the destiny pulling at her like a storm yet to break. And then, just as the twin opened his mouth to strike again, she paused, breathing, heart hammering, silver sparks dancing on her skin, eyes locked on the Lycan King. Would he finally intervene? Would he claim her, stand with her, or would fear and prophecy hold him back? Time seemed to stretch. Every heartbeat was a drum of war, every spark of silver a reminder of what she could become. She felt every betrayal, every insult, every rejection, but also something new. The first flicker of control, of self-possession, of a power finally recognized and embraced. And the cliffhanger, breathless, unrelenting, hung in the night. Would she survive her own awakening? Could she control the fire that had been growing inside her all these years? Would the Lycan King finally choose to stand by her? Or would the twins' manipulations succeed, leaving her alone with a destiny that could destroy everything? The forest held its breath. The snow paused mid-fall. The council froze mid-shout. And in the center of it all she stood, silver fire blazing, wolf snarling, heart raw and trembling, poised on the edge of everything she had ever feared, and everything she had ever wanted. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Snow and ice hovered midair, suspended in the silver light emanating from her body. She stood alone, chained no longer, bloodied and trembling yet untamed. Every betrayal, every accusation, every whispered word from the council and her twin had fused into a single point of clarity. She was not a victim. She was not a weapon to be controlled. She was the fire, the storm, the twin bound destined to either save the world or remake it in her image. The voices came first, soft, ancient, resonant. Whispered, then louder, then almost a roar in her mind. Her ancestors, long silenced, spoke through her. Claim what is yours. Bend the world. Let nothing remain unchanged. Each word ignited something deep within her, a resonance in her bones, a harmony with the earth beneath her feet. Trees bowed slightly, snow glimmered, and the very air seemed to tremble with the cadence of her awakening. She stepped forward, every movement deliberate, every breath a drumbeat of power. The silver sparks along her skin coalesced into radiant streams of energy, arching into the night sky. Her wolf, once a whisper, now howled in full force, echoing through valleys, announcing her presence, her sovereignty. She felt the fire pulse through her, not as a threat but as a truth. He was whole. He was unstoppable. From the shadows, the twin reeled, his arrogance evaporating, leaving only raw fear. "No, this can't be," he murmured, stumbling backward as the energy radiated outward, touching everything in the clearing. His power, his cunning, even his charm, all meaningless before the magnitude of what she had become. He turned, fled, vanishing into the night, leaving only a faint echo of his disbelief behind. And then she saw him, the Lycan King. Strong, commanding, yet restrained. His eyes met hers, a storm of conflict swirling in their depths. He had watched her struggle, seen her fear, glimpsed her power and vulnerability. He had wanted to step in, to save her, to claim her as his, but tonight was not about his choices. Tonight was hers. She approached, each step shaking the earth beneath her, silver fire trailing like a comet's tail. The wind whispered her name. The snow sparkled against her hair, her eyes, her markings, the symbols of a destiny she had once feared. She stopped mere paces away, the firelight casting her in brilliance. Her voice, steady now, rang through the cold night. "You don't get to choose me now," she said, every syllable carrying the weight of a lifetime of betrayal, pain, and awakening. "Not my path. Not my power. Not my life." The Lycan King's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his wolf instinctively reacting, yet he remained still as if acknowledging the truth in her words. No argument came. No plea. Only silent recognition. She had claimed herself, and nothing, not prophecy, not twin, not counsel, could unmake her. She turned then, walking away with purpose, her every movement exuding authority, grace, and newfound independence. Silver fire shimmered around her, illuminating the path forward. The forest itself seemed to bow, acknowledging her sovereignty, whispering to her wolf, to her ancestors, to the world that a new power had arisen. As she moved further from the clearing, the Lycan King remained, torn between relief and longing, admiration and regret. He understood that she had chosen herself first, her destiny above all else, and that recognition alone was enough to redefine everything. The night fell into a hushed reverence. Stars glittered overhead, as if the universe itself had paused to witness her transformation. The twin was gone, defeated not by him, not by anyone, but by her own clarity and strength. The council, stunned, remained speechless, their whispers fading into the distance. And in that silence, a voice, soft and haunting, carried over the wind, echoing across the snow and ice. "Would you have chosen her, or feared her power too?" The silver light dimmed slightly as though taking a deep breath, settling into the night, leaving only her silhouette against the stars. If this story stirred something inside you, subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections, where love burns, fate bites, and destiny never asks permission. And the final line, lingering like a shadow at the edge of dreams, like a promise yet to be fulfilled. Because the true alpha has not risen yet.